Residents and business people concerned about the siltation of Lake Cat-Eye gathered to discuss the issue with council and consultants who've prepared a management plan for the lake.
The purpose of the meeting was to enable the public to address any questions they may have to the consultants who prepared the study and get the answers direct from the horse's mouth.
The main speaker was Graham Hurrell, an engineer with Webb McQueen and Associates. Also a spokesperson from Marine Pollution Research and one from National Parks and Wildlife Service. Steve Wood from the council says an essential part of the decision-making process is to have public involvement.
The business people in Lake Cat-Eye tell us that they're losing business because tourists won't come when there's no water in the lake, and we understand that and we share their concerns.
Steve Wood says further public meetings will be organised if required.
More than 64 cars set off from Batteau Bay for 12 hours of rally action. Some had less than glorious starts. But once away, all the cars provided a spectacle as they winded around the town streets before tackling the dust of the Watkin State Forest. Newcastle's Michael Guest powered his Lancer around the tight corners to lead the competition. Close behind last year's winners Ron Creeman and Chris Randall in the Subaru Impreza. A Lancer fills third spot with the Central Coast Warren Ridge in control. The drivers and navigators covered more than 100 kilometres in the 11 time events. They'll line up again tomorrow, pushing their cars to the limits in a bid to win line honours in the Forest Classic Rally. Central Coast in the black and orange stripes scored the first goal, but Newcastle hit straight back. It would be the story of the day, as both sides tried to get a winning lead. Going into the last quarter, Newcastle trailed, but in a remarkable finish, the home team kicked 7-5 to Central Coast 2-1 to scrape home by 4 points, 117 to 113. In Second Division State League Netball, Newcastle in the green and brown scored an impressive 36 points to 30 win over St George. Defence was the key to the victory, with state goal defender Danielle Harvey blunting the St George attack. In the third division game, Newcastle went goal for goal with Ku-ring-gai. Down to the last quarter, it was any team's match, but Newcastle failed to pot the goals that mattered most, to go down 24 goals to 26. There was also the nucleus of the region's future representative sides in the city, with more than 100 under-15s from as far as Taree to Wyong. The training day helped selectors identify future state players, rather than relying solely on the state championships held later in the year. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. The Novocastrians were given hope early with a convincing win in the soccer. Newcastle in the white dominated the whole game to eventually run out winners 4 goals to 0. But the tide turned with the rugby, Illawarra thrashing the visitors 42 points to 8. The men in red ran in try after try to have the Newcastle defence constantly on the back foot. Both men and women's hockey were disastrous results, the men going down 9 goals to 0, the women 7 goals to 2. But there was some glimmer of hope by the end of the day, with the netball team beating Illawarra 41 goals to 35.
The Falcons came out in a confident mood. Mike Johnson and Derek Rucker looking for an early break. But the Tigers were still hurting from a loss to the Gold Coast on Friday night, and they were desperate for a win. Gaze and Copeland played some classy basketball. Not to be overshadowed, Terry Dozier showed he can match it with anyone in the NBL. But last year's premiers were just too strong. It was a hard-fought battle for possession, but it seemed nobody could stop Andrew Gaze. Gaze got 42 points, Copeland 31, Derek Rucker 29, Dozier 25. The final score, Melbourne Tigers 127, Newcastle 110. It was a damaging loss for the Falcons, falling further behind the top 8. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The usually sedate suburb was transformed into the centre of a major police operation just before 6 last night when a man barricaded himself inside his Renwick Street house. Negotiators worked under a shroud of darkness to try and talk the man out, but police feared the man was armed and called for backup from the State Protection Support Group. Cars were turned away as the area was cleared, a police vehicle a casualty of the rush. The man's wife gave police a sketch plan of the house as the State Protection Support Group prepared for a confrontation. But just as it appeared the siege would continue indefinitely, the man surrendered to police. The 38-year-old was charged at Toronto Police Station. An ambulance officer brought in to treat a minor injury. Later at the Renwick Street house, police allegedly found a number of firearms, including an illegal weapon. The man will appear in Wallsend Court tomorrow. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
About 100 blocks of land will be sold. The Tingara estate was officially opened by federal member Mark Vaile. The development had met with fierce opposition from some quarters.
We had a lot of opposition from the Greenies and the Radicals, but once again, it's a very environmentally special site. So a lot of the criticism was justified.
Owner Peter Aitkins says he's taken care not to damage the environment. People who buy the blocks of land will also have to take the environment into consideration when they build.
We won't allow cats, we'll only allow dogs under very strict conditions, we won't allow paling fences, we won't allow fibro cottages, we won't allow two-storey houses on the headland, the skyline.
Ten days ago, 3 artists started an experiment at Lake Macquarie City Gallery to get more people interested in art. It showed people how a work of art is created, rather than merely displaying the finished product. Today, Luke Beasley, Pauline Tickner and Scott Carey unveiled the results, a remarkable collection of drawings and paintings.
The community of Mooney Mooney turned out in force at Chiro Point for the official reopening of the road, which the people see as a vital alternative to the F3 freeway.
The main highway, which carries most of the traffic, is normally there and carrying out its task, but you really need an alternative. Without that, you have massive traffic jams.
The Transport Minister then called on the assembled children and local member, Environment Minister Chris Hatcher, to assist with the ribbon cutting, before Mr Baird then unveiled what he thought was a plaque. But oh, now, which rock is it supposed to be on? There are so many. There are 2 retaining walls of them, in fact, each 30 metres long, protecting the new 120-metre bridge from any further landslip. The piers supporting the bridge go down 16 metres to the bedrock. The whole project was completed for $1.5 million. That's below budget and 6 months ahead of schedule.
The Falcons looked fresh after their day off training yesterday, Tom Wiseman giving them a rest to try and break the team's losing routine. It seemed to have worked for Newcastle's leading point scorers, with Derek Rucker and Terry Dozier right on line. But Rucker has played down suggestions the game may come down to his clash with Magic import Adonis Jordan.
I think that other people tend to create that, but, certainly I like to outplay the other point guard or whoever my assignment is. So from that point of view, it's just like any other game, just trying to outdo the guy I'm going against.
Coach Tom Wiseman says the Falcons will have to play a spirited game in defence if it's to avoid 12 straight losses to the Magic.
I think it'll be more of a defensive game, really. The Magic have always played good defence. They're a very well-coached team, and obviously they're going to be tough on any night on any court.
I think we'll have to pick up our defence. This is going to be a good scoring team. They scored a lot of points last week in their win against Perth, so I think we really need to shut them down offensively.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Work on the northern seawall finished in the 1930s, but a planned southern seawall was never built. Councillor West believes this has caused sand build-up at the entrance to the Manning River, preventing nutrient-rich seawater flowing into the river.
If we had the exchange of water, the food is there for the oysters to grow. The exchange of water enables the nutrient levels to be manipulated by the ocean, and nature takes its course. The oyster production increases and we have healthy oysters.
Councillor West's comments follow a study showing that the neighbouring Wallace Lake oyster industry is 8 times more productive than the Manning River. Councillor West wants the seawall destroyed or a southern seawall built. Options, he says, will restore the flow of salt water into the river.
Shortly, an increase in the number of people employed. In 1987-88, there were 40 people involved in producing $1.2 million worth of oysters. In 1994, if production was at its peak, we would be producing in the vicinity of $9 million worth of oysters, employing in the vicinity of 150 people.
Facing a possible third straight loss at home, the Falcons lined up against their more fancied opponents, determined to wield a little magic of their own. With Falcons firing from all directions, they raced to a 9-point lead in the first few minutes. Newcastle maintained this momentum, leading by a similar margin at the first and half-time breaks. The game produced a titanic struggle between Melbourne's Adonis Jordan, who top scored for his side with 27 points, and Falcons guard Derek Rucker, who bettered that total by 4. Consistent three-pointers saw Magic go ahead 94-88 midway through the final quarter, but with 3 minutes to go, the Falcons turned the tables. Magic matched Newcastle's attack to stay only a few off the pace. With 30 seconds remaining, Terry Dozier gave his side a 3-point breathing space. Melbourne narrowed the gap to 1 point before the Falcons captain, with just a second left in the game, calmly sank a free throw, the score 105-103. Celebrations were delayed, however. A timing mistake saw the clock reset for a split-second replay. But it was Newcastle's night, the home side claiming its first victory against Melbourne in 6 seasons.
The site of a large-scale whale rescue 2 years ago, residents of Seal Rocks have worked to keep their town free of commercial development. Consultants have been appointed to prepare a management plan for the area. Around 60 locals attended the first of 2 workshops, held so interested parties could have a say on the future of their town.
There's concern that large developments might be on the agenda, such as the residential or tourist variety, and so you can expect people to be quite concerned about those issues.
Need they be?
I don't believe so.
Consultant Michael Wright claims public reactions to change will be gauged before any concrete plans are made. The Save Seal Rocks Action Group, a watchdog committee, is hoping to protect the local rainforest and retain the village atmosphere.
It's the last thing that's left of tradition on this coast, as far as tradition goes. Like back in the 40s, where there's one shop, there's a post office, there's a community, and the community help one another. But the rest of us, well, I'm getting carried away a little bit in the sense that I'm saying that where do you go from here?
Member for Mile Lakes John Turner and Federal Member for Lyne Mark Vale attended the opening of the City Festival. The Walker Manning Biennial Arts Prize drew a record crowd. Artists vying for $10,000 in prize money, Shirley Cameron Roberts came first place, with her painting The Power of the Pawns. Meanwhile, at the Tari RSL, 15 girls strutted their stuff in an effort to win the Search for a Cover Girl Golden Gowns quest. The finalists modelled award-winning gowns in front of hundreds of spectators. Local model Britt Carlisle won the quest, with Amanda Pass named first runner-up. Prizes include a trip to Sydney, as well as clothes and gym memberships.
It's been a great experience.
With both Southend Lakes battling to stay in touch with the league leaders, the two sides were hungry for a win. 5 minutes into the game and Lakes captain coach Steve Walters turned eagerness into points. Lions' Mick Reid counter-attacked, the boot of Gary Bray levelling the score at 6-all. Having added 2 through a penalty kick, Jeff Walters then took centre stage with a 4-pointer. In the 30th minute, Brett Bothan went in for one of the easiest tries of the match. Shortly after, a solid cover tackle by Mike Reid stopped Jeff Walters in his tracks, saving a certain try. But Walters made sure work of his next scoring opportunity, taking Lakes into the break 16-12 ahead. In the second half, however, South dominated, running in 2 more tries to wrap up the game 24-18. In other weekend clashes, Maitland annihilated the Butcher Boys, West drew with Toronto, Cessnock too good for Waratah, and Curry accounted for Norths.
Although it's been some time since their loved ones committed suicide, the pain and suffering continues for those left behind.
It's devastating and it's so isolating also. They're out there in the community and there isn't anyone to turn to. And if they come into the group, it's a safe place where they can share their feelings and where other people understand what they're talking about because they've been there too.
This support group meets once a month at Newcastle's Lifeline Centre. For most, it's the only chance to talk openly about their heartache.
The community at large seem to think of it as with shame and guilt. We do understand physical pain, don't we? And we sympathise with people, and if someone is dying, we go to them and we say we want to help. But when it's emotional pain, we're just not quite sure how to handle it.
Recent studies have revealed a dramatic rise in youth suicides, but group leader Barbara Turnbull, whose husband took his own life, says the tragedy is widespread.
It affects all age groups, it definitely does. It goes right over the board, from youth, from children even, right through to the aged.
Lifeline's national hotline number can be reached 24 hours a day. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The new airjet looms at National Textiles at Maitland are running 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. The state-of-the-art machines boost bed linen production by 25%. It also means a new type of open-weave cellular blanket can be made for hospitals, prisons and retail markets, an area previously dominated by Chinese producers. It's a huge boost for the company.
In dollar terms, in the first instance, we can see about $2 million worth of additional sale, and hopefully that will go up to something in the region of $5 to $8 million over the next 12 to 18 months.
The expansion is good news for the Aussie economy. 8 jobs have been created with the opportunity for more down the line. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
We've obviously got a very old facility there which has been reasonably well maintained, but it's not appropriate for modern health services into the next century, so it's very important that we look at what time in which we can upgrade the facilities, but more importantly, what sort of facility do we want here at Manning Base.
Dairy Farmers is the major sponsor of women's netball in New South Wales.
I was looking for a healthy sponsor, coming from a physical education background, that would complement a clean, healthy image sport such as New South Wales netball.
3 members of the state under-21 netball team have been running coaching clinics in schools. They were at Lambton High in Newcastle, accompanied by nutritionist Julie Howden, who's employed by Dairy Farmers. She was promoting the need for women to have a high intake of calcium to prevent osteoporosis, a condition that causes the thinning of bones in the ageing process.
The most important thing is that if they get enough calcium prior to their early 20s, they're putting their bones in the best possible shape to prevent osteoporosis later in life.
Julie Howden says young women should be having 3 serves of dairy products each day, either milk, cheese or yogurt. Exercise too is important.
The Kurri Kurri Corridor is the RTA's preferred route to link the F3 freeway with the New England Highway at Branxton. Even though their small town has been spared by the proposal, residents of Seahampton believe another option outside Maitland should have been chosen. At a meeting last night, they vowed to continue their push for that extension. Still on roads, and an announcement today that the federal government will spend $20 million in the coming financial year on other routes linking the F3 with the Pacific and New England highways. $4.2 million will be used to build a flyover at the intersection of John Renshaw Drive and the New England Highway at Beresfield. However, work won't begin until 1995, much later than first promised.
We need to have that completed at the end of 1993, when we will have completed the National Highway from Sydney right through to Beresfield.
Also to be funded, another road to duplicate Lenigan's Drive at a cost of $13.5 million. This road will take northbound traffic heading for the Pacific Highway. The federal government will also contribute $1.7 million towards the construction of a flyover at the intersection of Anderson Drive and the New England Highway at Taro. Work should be completed toward the end of next year.
Bill Burns is on a mission to coax more than 3,000 kilometres out of his faithful old Model T and raise money for a special cause. Bill from the Newcastle suburb of Lambton is taking his 72-year-old car on a rally from Adelaide to Alice with 25 other Model Ts and then driving solo onto Darwin. The first Model T Ford to do a similar trip across Australia took 4.5 months in 1913. Bill expects his crossing to take 3 weeks, but it won't be a luxury ride.
Very rough, 2 transverse springs and no shock absorbers, 30 miles an hour, and that's about it. Wind and rain comes in the sides and in the front.
57-year-old Bill is in remission from cancer. In making this trip, he's hoping to raise $10,000 for research into cancer at the Mater Hospital. The Model T rally leaves Adelaide in 2 weeks. They'll have a backup crew with supplies and spares, but these cars are so simple, a screwdriver and some wire can fix most problems. Peter Ryan, NBN News. St George's tough forward Gordon Tallis is charged with headbutting after this confrontation with Newcastle's Jamie Ainscough on Sunday. Jeff Carr from the Dragons has asked for a health report on Ainscough for tonight's hearing in Sydney. Knights Chief Brad Mellon was happy to write a letter.
After speaking to Jamie, we discovered that Jamie hadn't suffered any injury in the incident, and Jeff asked us if we were prepared to put a statement in writing to that effect, and I've done that today.
The Knights have stressed they don't support illegal play. Meanwhile, the Knights' new marketing manager was on the job today. 27-year-old Russell Edwards comes from the Broncos Leagues Club in Brisbane. Replacing Lee Morn, Edwards faces a big challenge finding a major sponsor for the Knights. He is confident the right company will come forward with such fanatical crowds following the team.
The tremendous support that we do have here at Newcastle, it's fantastic. A football mad city, and certainly I think we can mobilise that in the best possible way.
And the team has been announced to play Eastern Suburbs at Marathon Stadium on Saturday. In a surprise move, Brad Godden has been brought into 5'8". With Andrew Johns out injured, his brother moves into halfback. Jason Martin on the bench. Steve Crow comes into prop with the chief out with State of Origin. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's been a tough season treading the boards for the Hunter Valley Theatre Company, recording a $71,000 loss last year.
Unfortunately, people didn't have that spare dollar to come to the theatre.
Board members have been discussing ways to put the business back into the black. The annual fundraising arts ball has been dumped and may be replaced by a gala-style one-night program. As a cost-cutting measure, the number of productions has been cut from 6 to 5 a year and will be striving to foster and promote local works, even though it's easier to fill seats by introducing big-name shows.
We get people through the door very easily. With our current production, which we're on the set now, Newcastle Shorts, we're very proud of that because that's shown us developing Newcastle playwrights right from a studio situation through to production in a year. But because people haven't heard the name, I think people are perhaps more reticent to come to the theatre.
As well as hoping to secure sponsorships, the company will be calling for favours as well.
We're looking at attracting David Williamson to come and provide a talk for people in hopefully late July, and we think that the students will be particularly interested in that because David Williamson is on their syllabus.
Experience as